Afternoon, YouTube. It's your man, HDM Law Comics, here on an afternoon to talk about lovely subject of comic book insurance. Plus, I'm going to do a quick spec at the end, um, just because I want to say you heard it first from me, but we'll see. So, comic book insurance. So, this is a relatively boring topic, but I think it's important to kind of go through it. Um, First, an overview about insurance itself. Insurance is where a company, you pay a premium to a company, you pay money to a company each month or year or whatever period they designate to cover any damage or loss to a certain item. Now, most insurance we are required to pay by law. Auto insurance is one. So, if you get a car and you have a bank note, banks will require you to have full comprehensive coverage on your auto insurance. If you own the car outright, the state or the government is going to require you to have liability insurance. So if you hit anybody, then of course then they can get damages from you. We wouldn't pay it if we didn't have to, and there are a lot of people that drive, of course, without insurance. But if you think about it, I've paid insurance. I paid average about $1,000 a month for my auto insurance for 4 cars that I have, and two my kids use. So if I go over to 12 years that I've paid this since the last time I had a claim, you're looking at about $144,000. So $12,000 a year for I haven't had anything since 2008 for 12 years. $144,000 I've given to a company just in case something happens, that I hit somebody or somebody hits me. What the company does with your premium is that they invest it. They don't just have it sitting around in a bank vault someplace. They invest it. They earn interest on it. They have the money grow, and they make money. So their whole point is to take your premium, stick it in a fund, make money off of that, and pray you never make a claim, because they don't want you making claims. Because if you make claims, that takes money away from them. But just in case there happens to be a loss, happens to be an accident, then they will go ahead and cover it. Should cover it as long as you meet the necessary deductibles and exclusions. Same with homeowners insurance. If you buy a home and you have a mortgage, your mortgage lender is going to require you to have homeowners insurance, because again, they want to, if they've paid 200, 300,000 or more for your house that you're paying them back from, they want to make sure if something blows up or goes in a fire, that there's insurance to cover that. And of course, the insurance company, does calculations and actuaries to make sure that, the chance of that happening is minimal. Because again, they want to take your money, keep your money, and never have to pay it out. I've had houses since 1993. And, in those, was that 27 years of paying homeowners insurance, I've had one claim, which, really wasn't much, because I had a $500 deductible, and therefore that took most of the claim anyway. Because there was just one repair in my house and stuff like that. But other than that, they've just kept the money. And that's about $200 per month. So I've been paying about $200 a month for 27 years to an insurance company to make sure I don't have any accidents. But that's the nature of insurance. Insurance companies are there to make money. They are there to hope that, whatever you have, you value so much that you're not going to destroy it. You pray it doesn't get destroyed, and you do your best to keep it. And they're hoping that you have no claims, so they can keep your money and invest it and make money. If you do have a claim, it's a small enough claim that they can pay it and go on their way. So this main thing comes about comic book insurance. Now, comic book insurance has been around for quite some time, um, but I've started seeing some ads in it, and I'm hearing people in the community start talking about that they have insurance on their comic books. So, I said, let me do some research and get some better idea of whether or not, comic book insurance is something that I should invest in or not. So, most comics are covered under a homeowner's policy. If you own a home, then your homeowner's policy will cover contents up to a certain monetary level. Generally, it's usually $50,000, but you can insure your contents up to $1,000,000. You just simply ask the company to, I want to increase the amount of coverage on my contents a certain amount, and then they'll cover it. Usually, they will ask you, okay, what is it that you have that's so expensive? If it's a lot of stuff, they will make the insurance, and then they will go ahead and adjust the rate. So that's why most comic collections, if you have homeowners insurance or renters insurance, then they will generally be covered. If you are living at home, then your parents would have to make the claim, and then therefore they would generally be covered. If you have special comics, like there are a lot of people that have old comics, before 1975. Well, let's just say that, because this company wanted comics before 1979. And so they're looking at modern comics as not that important, because most modern comics are going to be, at best, you have a few that are going to be, 5 to 10K. That's, as long as you document those, and you keep, so you have proof that you own it, and you keep it in a decent place, usually you're good to claim it. And usually your regular homeowner's policy will kind of cover that. Of course, if you decide you want to increase, now if you haven't, the real comes in when you have the real classic Silver Age, Golden Age comics. So if you have, Amazing Spider-Man from 1 through 200, all in great shape, that's where you look at really needing separate insurance. Now, most homeowners policies cover the home and the curtilage. So that means if you have a garage that's on the property, you have a tool shed that's on the property, or any other kind of structure on the property that you store stuff in, then your homeowner's policy will cover that. Your homeowner's policy will also cover, generally, if you're transporting your books back and forth. So, like if you're taking the books someplace and they're in your car gets in an accident, books go up in flames, then your homeowner's policy will cover those as opposed to the auto insurance policy. First thing you have to do is you must keep really good records of the books that you own, because just simply saying I have $30,000 worth of comic books, insurance company's going to go, do you have any verification or proof that you own these to match up to that amount? Because they're not trying to pay that money just because you say it. And so then if you have receipts, or you have a list, not enough, but if you have to do a video and put in the cloud of every comic book that you have, then they can look at it, and then they'll go ahead and determine, okay, he does have these that match the list that he has, that match the price of them, and we'll go ahead and pay the claim. But it's important to have that documentation, because I'm going to tell you right now, insurance companies will track down fraud. They are really big on tracking down fraud. And they're not state, they're not the government. So they're not held to the standards and the legal rights that you have against the government. So they can, check your social media without a warrant. They can, go into your places, come on your property and look around stuff without a warrant, because they're private. Now, do you have any recourse against that? Maybe, but they'll deny the claim if they find that there's fraud. So it's always important to understand that aspect of why you want to have some good evidence that you own these books. Keep good records. Have a video of them around. Just pick them up. Here you go. Here you go. Here you go. Here you go. And that way you can download it to them. They have a records in the cloud, or it's on your IG account, or you have a YouTube video that shows your books, and then they can say, okay, they have proof of them, and we'll go ahead and honor that, if they can just simply quickly find the value of them, and you have the value, there's value, so they can make the claim. It's different when you have the real expensive stuff, and I mean no disrespect to anybody. Yes, you have books that are worth $300-$400 that are graded, that you value, that you spec on, but I'm talking about the big books, the big boys, the ASM 1s, the FF 1s, the ASM 50s that are 9.0 and better. The ones, the ASM 1 that's like $80,000 by itself. Those are the big boy books, okay? Now, those are going to require a separate policy. And most homeowners insurances will they'll have a rider. It's called a rider, where you take a special item that is rather expensive on its own, and the insurance company will make a special policy for that attaches onto your homeowner's insurance. That's called a rider. So like if you've got a engagement ring that's 3 carats, 1 carat, whatever, but it's 15K or more, 30K, whatever, then your insurance company said, well, we're going to put that in a separate rider because that's going to be a little special. About same with gold, silver, real expensive jewelry, those type of things. They'll say there's a separate little spot for that, separate premium that covers just that, and that's called a rider. So it'd be the same if they saw that you had, your comic collection was about $50,000 to $70,000 total. Then they say, okay, we're going to take that out of the homeowner's insurance because it's a little different than just having a bunch of comics that are worth $5,000 to $10,000. Now we're up here $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. So we may do a special rider for that to cover just the comics. Now, of course, you have to read all of your policy. That's rule number one. Know your policy, because there are exclusions all over the place. Floods, huge places. If your home is in a certain flood zone, they won't insure it, and they'll tell you. It's in the lovely print in the big policy. You got to see what zone it is, and so you have to know where your stuff is. So it's got to be in a certain flood zone. There are certain things that they'll have to store it. So you can't store it in a damp, moldy basement. You have to elevate it off the floor, have it in nice containers that are flame resistant, or aren't just subject out in the elements, because they will decline your claim, because they have to be kept certain. Again, their whole purpose is to make money. Now, if you have your comics in a storage unit that is not on the property, that may require a separate policy. Okay, so usually you would go to whoever has your store, wherever the management of the storage property is, find out who they have for insurance, and then get a policy through them for your storage unit and the contents of your storage unit, because it's not your home, you're not there all the time. They look at that separately. If you're in the business of buying and selling comics, whole different issue as well, because then you're not just a collector, you're now a seller. And if you're in the commerce of buying and selling, your inventory changes and switches a lot. So then that requires a different policy. So be careful if you go on auctions and sell stuff on eBay, and not just buy it. Because having a collection is, I buy stuff for my collection, put it in my collection, I keep it. But if I'm buying stuff and I move it, I buy stuff to sell, and they see enough evidence of that, they may decide to designate you as a business, even a small business, and you may say, I'm just a collector first, I just happen to sell stuff on auctions. And they'll go, yeah, no. we will classify you as a business because you do it, once, twice a week, and you've done that for the past months. So yeah, that's an ongoing business. Part time, but it's an ongoing business. So now we'll classify that as inventory. Whole different subject. Now you need business insurance and it depreciates, not valued the same, all that stuff. So again, have a storage unit. You may need a separate policy than your homeowner's policy to cover the comics in the storage unit. Make sure you have that taken care of. If you're in the business of buying and selling comics and you put yourself out like that and not just a simple private collector, you may have it may be designated as a business, and you may need a separate business policy to cover it as well, which will have some semblance of liability insurance as well built into it. And again, if you have real expensive comics, individual issues like Spider-Man 1, single issue, X-Men 1, FF1, that are in high grade, then so they're worth 80,000 or more. Action Comics 1 or Detective 1 that are really expensive. You'll need a separate rider for that. And even then, some insurance companies will go, yeah, we're still not going to cover it just because it's so expensive. AF-15 in grade, no, we're not going to cover that. AF-15 at a 9.4, worth $1.5 million. No, your homeowner's policy is not going to cover that. So you then now have to get comic book insurance, real comic book insurance. Now, so what the real comic book insurance will require you to do, they will then require that your comics, each individual comics, be appraised by their own experts. Not you. You can't do it. They say, we need to see it, we need to look at it, and we need to appraise it. Our people will appraise it. And we'll assign it a certain value, and then we will then insure you for that value. But it's their call. So if you have, Amazing Spider-Man 1, that raw in an 8.0 is about 50K. Graded in 8.0 is like 80K. Okay? So say you have one that's graded 8.0. And they say, we need to appraise it because it's a comic. If we're going to show it, we need to appraise it. You send them pictures of it. Okay? Their expert will look at it and, see what the value is and then say, okay, well, I assign it a value of $80,000. And then they'll say, okay, so we'll insure that for that amount. If it's raw, the appraiser will look at it and go, I don't know, I think it's only worth $40,000. And then even though you think it's $80,000 without it being graded, he'll go, well, I'll send it a value of $40,000. Where that becomes important is if something happens to your stuff, usually your insurance will either give you cash value or replacement costs. Two totally different things. And very important for you to understand that. Replacement cost is whatever it costs to get the item. So if you have an ASM1 that you have a replacement cost on, if it costs $85K to replace it, the insurance pays you $85K. If it's cash value, and they'll go, well, the cash value upon our appraisal is $40K, you're getting $40K. They don't care what it costs to replace. But you're getting that. Because replacement costs will cost more than just cash value. And so that's why that becomes important to know. The appraisals also cost money to do. Because in this, the company I researched says an appraisal for one comic is about $10 to $11, depending on how many you buy. So if you buy 100 appraisals, it's about $11 per one. If you buy only 10, it's 15 or so. But it costs money for you to have them appraise your book, because they go, well, if you want us to insure it, we need to look at it. We need to have our people look at it and put it down. So you can buy as many appraisals as you can, and we'll appraise it. So if you got a comic collection that has 6,000 books, you might want to take your best 100 and get insurance on that, and then have the rest covered by your homeowner's policy. But that's something you've got to look at. And again, they will look at it and make the appraisal. And the most important thing you've got to do is read the policy, understand the exclusions. They exclude a ton of stuff. And it's very important for them to exclude a ton of stuff because they want to make sure that they don't pay out the money. That's the whole thing. Now, this insurance companies can, and they have it built in that each year you can increase your insurance amount by 1%. It's just an automatic rollover. So it's like each year the premiums increase 1% to cover the cost, and they usually cover up to $1 million. And that's what they're comfortable doing. So if you have an AF-15 9.4 that currently is at $1.5 million, you can get insurance up to probably $1 million. And then the other $500,000, you're just going to have to, suck on it and hope it does it. Now, again, that's just, one company I look through. There are other mass insurance companies out there like Chubb, CHUBB, that are high-end insurance companies. And they cover athletes and real art collections and real expensive stuff. So there's always some insurance out there for everything. It's just a matter, you have to find it and pay for it. So when you look at what you're going to insure, you have to make sure that it's something you can afford, and if you really, really need it. So again, most of the people that we know who have collections generally can, like I say, if you own a house and you have a homeowner's policy, generally your stuff can be covered under there. The biggest thing is have it documented, have proof that you have it, and keep it safe and secure, and that'll do it. So Ultimate Fallout 4 9.8, they really don't care about. Okay, but Giant Size X-Men 1 9.8, yeah, they'll care about that. So that's where you have to look at it. So no disrespect to anybody, not trying to minimize anybody's collection or anybody's books. You work hard to get them. You spend a lot of good money to get them. You spec really hard on them. So don't get your feelings hurt if your insurance company goes, yeah, we'll just cover that under your regular policy. It's not that important. So just be cool with that. And so okay, fine. Just comply with the terms of your policy. Understand the terms of your policy, and then you have a better chance. So that's about 23 minutes of that great subject of comic book insurance. Hope that you're not too bored and haven't turned it off after 5 minutes. But just some highlights. The biggest thing is document everything, have records of what you have, especially the important ones, and read your policy. You have to read the policy because they make exclusions all the time. And if you don't, you get caught, then you're sitting there going, I paid all this premiums for nothing. And understand, insurance companies are in the business of making money. They don't care what you have or how sentimental it is. They're in the process of making money and saving it. They take your money with the intent of keeping it. Now, if you have a claim, yes, they'll honor it and pay for it. But the whole point is that they hope that you don't have claims because, they don't want to pay any money. And most of you don't want claims anyway because you want to keep your books that you have. You want to keep them in the great, condition that you have. So, enough on that. So, I hope I was able to give you some extra knowledge on insurance. If you do, please hit the like button, subscribe, because like I say, as topics come up, I'll try my best to, shed some light on it from my perspective, because like I say, being a lawyer and a businessman, I've dealt with insurance many times and have a decent understanding about how they work and why they're in existence. And you sit there and go, how much money you've paid to insurance and not have a claim, you're going, geez. And then, of course, if you have 2 claims, they'll drop you in a heartbeat. And then you're sitting there going, all this money I've paid to cover stuff. And same with health insurance, the same thing. So, on to my little mini speculation. As you know, and if you've seen videos before, I'm a fan of the show StarGirl. I've watched all the episodes, and sometimes I've commented on them on my videos. And so I love the way they did with the Justice Society. Brought out some characters from the Golden Age. Very important. So last night was the season finale. They called it the finale, but I think it's the season finale. Where and if you follow the show, you had a feeling that this arc had to end somehow, and it did end. But they set up for a possible next season. Okay. There are a ton of first appearances that happened throughout the show this season, so most of those are covered. But there was one that came out, which at the end, the daughter, minor character, the next generation of the Injustice Society, is holding up this emerald diamond and says the word Eclipso. So, I'm going, okay. That's probably the mail. So, I know who Eclipso is. And for me, it was a character from the early 80s, or the late 80s, from DC. And so I said, okay, well, that looks like they're going to bring him back for season 2. Okay, well, then, hey, let me find out. Because usually if they have new characters of interest, first appearance and issue 1 of their own title. So I know that there was he had a miniseries, and then of course he did this big crossover through DC. So I think that but his first appearance was in 1963 in House of Secrets 61. Already a very pricey book, but that's his actual first appearance. So short Spec, he might be coming. I think he is coming. So if you be on the lookout for it, if you can find it, get it, and you get a mid grade, it might really pop up a little bit. So that's it. Again, thank you. I will put out a preview video of this week's auctions either later today or tomorrow. I expect to be on an auction on Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. Trying to find you some decent books. And we'll go from there. So again, and then I'll try to do my local haul from what I got from the LCSs tomorrow as well. I've got one more to go to, then we'll do that video as well. So again, have a good afternoon. Hope I didn't bore you to pieces with the comic book stuff. Please give a comment if you have, subscribe, and hit the like button. Okay, we'll see you next time. Thank you.